Our next keynote is from Leo Barrientos. He is the co-founder and CEO of Lexgo. It's at lexgo.cl, which is legal services for modern companies. That's at least the translation I get when I look at their homepage. It's Servicios Legales para Empresas Modernas. That's as bad as my Spanish is. But yeah, Leo, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rob. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And so just so folks know, Lexgo has two sides to the business model, but you're focused on being a legal SaaS app. And you do have some one-off kind of consulting and contract work that it's not consulting or contract, it's just legal work that you outsource to some partners. But you're focused on South America, and there you do have a large component of your business is the subscription that people pay just to have access to documents and signing and filling out, completing documents in your app.
Yep, exactly. What we felt is that, at least for the time being, if you want to power up your subscription model, you'll need as a last resort for our users to get in contact with lawyers to just learn how to use the proper documentation for all sorts of different processes. So it makes a lot of sense for us to have that access while we push. You should be using our SaaS because it's cheaper, easier, faster than just use regular lawyers.
Excellent. All right, so let's dive in. You're going to be talking today about partnership marketing and really how you, in the early days of Lexgo, because now you have quite good traction. I mean, you and I have spoken, offline about your revenue and how everything's going. But partnership marketing was really how you got your kickstart. So if producer Xander, if we can bring up Leo's slides, and we will start to roll through it.
Yeah, for sure. So as Rob said, we are nowadays an automated legal service for startups. What we try to do is enable founders to complete all of their legal processes that their company needs much faster and a fraction of the cost of lawyers. Also, how we did that is just automating tons of legal workflows. So founders can incorporate their company in different countries of the world, hire their employees, and do even some fundraising rounds through the platform without having to pay the premium that usually is involved while working with lawyers. So, but of course, our product wasn't like that at the beginning. What we did, I will say that by the beginning, we were some sort of Avodocs, which is a YC company, with a damn Stripe atlas. And what I mean with a damn Stripe atlas is that we automated all the legal paperwork, but of course, all the registration process wasn't in order, just because we wanted to test who will be the real users of Lexgo at the beginning. And actually, we did this while we were in the Startup Chile program back in 2017. And we quickly came up with three main pros. At the beginning, Lexgo was a B2C platform. So we were focused on consumers that, I don't know, they have one or two legal problems each year, and that's that. So we actually spend much more money than what we get from selling to them. And the other typical problem that we have is that it was very difficult for us to qualify each of the new users that we have in the platform because we were able to acquire from solopreneurs to small businesses into tech companies and medium to big companies, which was insane because the product was built for consumers, but you can tell that there was a huge need of a product like Lexgo. And I think very connected to this point is that small and medium businesses don't face the same legal challenges that a startup will face. So legal spending on legal was very different between each of these companies, which at the beginning of a new company was very difficult to say which of the features or products shall we focus in order to move forward. And the interesting part is that while we were in Startup Chile, the funding from Startup Chile was very small. I remember by my time it was like 25,000 with a small investment from First Angel. So we were covering like our tech team and on the founder salaries for the beginning, and we didn't have too much money in order to just sell Lexgo. So we had to come up with a strategy to acquire new users almost free. So we take advantage of that we were going through the program, we have Startup Chile by that time had a batch of, I don't know, 60 to 80 companies, and they were the first focus of our users. Like, okay, please let me know if Lexgo is working for you, what you're expecting from Lexgo. And we knew that this was a huge problem for Startup Chile. Most incubators and accelerators, especially the ones that work with international companies, have a very hard time dealing with the soft landing of those companies in the country and how to structure subsidiaries around the world, how to comply with local regulation, etc. So for us, it was very natural to go into that place and tell them like, hey, I can take care of this problem for you. And I can act as a partner, so I can offer you some sort of discounted price on our services in order to deal with all of your portfolio companies that are coming to Chile. And from the user perspective, there was I really like this bundled products in which that you arrive to Chile or the US or whichever other country. There's a company that can help you not only with incorporating what you need to go through this program, but also just complying with all of the details of accounting, taxes, etc. So that's why we created very quickly this sort of straight atlas for Chile. All of our revenue in the 6-8 months of Lexgo came from this. Very straightforward, and I will say that like version 2, which was the process of going from a B2C to a B2B platform, was almost entirely focused on helping these companies and startups build their companies around the world and scale their operation through the region. And maybe for those who don't know how Stripe Atlas work, maybe this is some difference with Lexgo Global, which is our incorporation product, is that we just wanted to offer an easy way to incorporate international startups in the markets they need to be operating. So the product not only includes company incorporation, but also goes with accounting and taxes and some banking solutions. And all of these products and services are controlled through the Lexgo platform. This was very interesting because not only this was the first way to acquire a bunch of clients, but also if you did a good job with them, they will refer you to new clients and other founders who are working on the same kind of issues. And there's like a virtuous cycle in which the word of mouth help us acquire all of our new clients.
I'm gonna pop in here, Leo.
Yeah,
I love it. There's a couple learnings already that may not even directly relate to partnerships, but one is you started B2C because a lot of us, that's our exposure as consumers, and we're going to build a startup, and why don't we serve consumers? And a lot of us find that that's, it's not a never do, but it's my guidance is that 80-90% of the time, if you really do want to do this and you want to build a sustainable, ambitious, SaaS product without raising a bunch of funding, usually B2B is the way to go. The other thing is you found out pretty early, or I love the way you said that your early version of Lexgo was Avodocs plus Stripe Atlas, and you didn't mean that you combined those two. You meant that that's what the platform essentially did. Like you looked elsewhere into a separate market, which was the really the U.S. market, and you said, well, that exists in the U.S., so why can't it exist for South American countries? And then I love the really the focus that we're about to dive into on partnerships. So I'll let you continue from there.
Yeah, for sure. The cool thing about the whole process is that actually our own users tell us why we should be building. And the necessity was very clear. While in the V2C market, you could tell that the market wasn't big or mature enough to want it to have access to these kind of solutions. As I was speaking, this first partnership with Startup Chile made a lot of sense for us, and they were actually very relieved that they can count on Lexgo to solve the issue for the portfolio companies. And what we did is just trying to replicate the same model for every local incubator and accelerator that we could estimate they have the same problem, and they did. They were working with some of them with other law firms, but we go back to the same problem, the regional problem, right? Lawyers are too expensive. I don't want to spend the premium that I need to in order to incorporate very standard companies, implement very standard paperwork, and so on. So after working with all of the local and incubators and accelerators, you could tell that Lexgo was transitioning to some sort of company management in a box. We were not only dealing with how you solve legal issue of your company, but also how you comply with all of the obligations that comes with opening a company and then having a presence in all of the countries. So, and this is how we went to our second, I would say, series of partnerships that make a lot of sense to us. It was that because we didn't want to spend time on building a product that wasn't core to the core experience, wasn't core and wasn't like our main base of what the Lexgo product should do, is that we had to complement our product with auxiliary complementary services like accounting, taxes, banking, etc. Just in order to have this company management in a box, right? So this was cool because not only we were achieving having a more robust product that solves all of the issues that founders were facing, but also you could tell from the beginning that this is, of course, could be a great channel of acquisition for us, just because if we are sending our users to have access to accounting, SaaS, some tax compliance, banking solutions, etc., they could do the same for us, right? Whenever users from these companies were facing legal issues, a great way to solve them in order to provide their final services was sending them to Lexgo, because we can take care of all legal paperwork, advice that is needed, etc.
Right. And so, if I can pop in here, I think a key here is that you found an aspirin pain. Aspirin versus vitamin, right? It's not, hey, maybe someday you need some legal protection. It's like right now you need to incorporate, or you need an IP agreement for your employees, or you need, hiring agreements, just whatever you need. And you know that a lot of these companies, pretty much all the companies, need it, and it's too expensive and it's too cumbersome, and referring people out to law firms is a pain. And so these partners, you're saying value-added partners, they're these accelerators constantly see, we see it with Tiny Seed. We just constantly see this need for companies that have to do the same thing over and over. And so when you engage these partners, it was just an obvious, like, oh, if you can take this pain away from our companies, you take this pain away from us, right? And I think that's a key part of the story.
Yeah, I think that's completely right. And maybe just give an example makes a lot of sense. So, for example, we work with a Chilean startup that is called Book. They do payroll services as a SaaS too. And of course, they don't provide any kind of legal advice about how you fire, how you, how you deal with certain situations while working with your employees. So the product came to some sort of deadlock when their users had that problem. So they asked Book, like, hey, how can I fire? What kind of justification I can do to do so? In most of South American countries, maybe in some framework about this, you need a justification in order to fire someone. You can do it right away, or you'll pay some fine and higher amounts that you should. So, of course, they couldn't provide a service because we were already working in that partnership. We said, like, hey, why we don't do it? Just we add a button that helps you very quickly to ask advice to the Lexgo team about this, and they will inform what's the best cost for firing an employee through your platform, and you can calculate everything and do the whole process through Book. So that made us a lot of sense, because they weren't able to provide their service properly because they were missing that kind of legal advice. So, of course, with every one of these SaaS companies that make a lot of sense working together, what we did is, of course, we offer discounted prices to each other, and also these integrations that could help you to offer a more robust product, just because the whole experience for the end user is much better when I can solve everything that I need, even legal, accounting, or taxes, in the same platform of each of our companies. And that's what we said, that we are providing a solution to a need, just to making those platforms better, and it's the same for the Lexgo case. And the cool thing is that because even today we have a very limited technical team, is that we can focus on the things that make us very powerful against competition. But because we know there is a huge pain about dealing with all the things that are related to managing your company, we needed to do those integration and partnerships in order to just provide a product that solves the pain in its integrity. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about on a specific partnership that we did with Clay, which is the first partnership we closed. The Clay is a Chilean startup also that they offer accounting as a software as a service solution. And of course, as I was saying, we offered a discounted price of cloud service when you buy Lexgo Global or you hire any of our certain subscription plans in the platform. And of course, we integrate with them. From sales contracts that you sign and create in Lexgo, but also some payroll features, etc. And of course, what we negotiate with them is that if we're going to be an important channel of acquisition for you, we would like to have a certain percentage of the subscription plans we help you close. And I think even for the time being, it's 5% of whatever they pay for them. And at the same time, not only we refer clients to Clay, they also deal with us because, for example, there was a lot of issues with some tax planification or how to count some, from safe convertible notes, which everyone who has dealt with this know they're a little tricky to manage from accounting and tax perspective. They didn't know how to deal with them. So of course, whenever Clay users need some sort of tax or legal advice about how to deal with their companies, they refer us directly to Lexgo, and we offered either a project or one of our subscription plans if they make sense to them. Like we said before, this make a lot of sense because we were both feeling this pain of not having access to, in the case of Lexgo, accounting services that complement our solutions. And in the case of them, they weren't able to offer their plans because they have some deadlocks about tax and legal advice. So this was pretty cool because with just partnerships that make a lot of sense to our product. I think last year we got like 4,000K on revenue just for this referrals. So it's incredible how they can add a lot of your MRR or ARR. Just having someone who helps you provide a good product, and also it's a great acquisition channel for you, and like a little revenue just for doing that effort. And I think you can do that with tons of other companies that make sense to partner with. I think nowadays we have expanded to a lot of other things like visas to different countries. Of course, we partner with Amazon Web Services, Stripe helping, South American companies that need to do a flip swap to the US and then they need to deal with legal management of a US company, which is the same case as US or foreign founders coming to South America. So I would love to just make Lexgo the platform in which you can deal with everything that goes with company management as you scale your operational through the world. I don't know, Rob, if you want to get into this or we should just speak about some specifics, but I just wanted to show you about this couple of cases in which partnerships were very effective. Of course, if I start speaking about every one of them that we know that, we could stay like for another 30 minutes.
Sure. There's a lot of examples. Yeah. Let's see if there are any questions from the audience. I'm checking. Producer Xander, you can send me any questions that come up. I do have a question for you. So what kind of, I guess, obviously Startup Chile was the first partnership that you had, and then you added additional accelerators after that, right? Yeah. And do you feel like the results from the initial partnership, because obviously you had a unique relationship with Startup Chile and that they decided that they gave you some funding. I mean, it's a small amount of funding, but that makes it easier to have a partnership. You still solved a desperate need they had, and they wouldn't have used you as a customer or a referral if you didn't solve that. Do you feel like that one feels like a no-brainer and an easy one to close? Were the other partnerships you were attempting to close, were they harder because there was more perhaps distance because other accelerators hadn't given you funding, and so it was really a traditional business development relationship that you had to build?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the whole experience with Startup Chile could give you a lot of insight about what were the challenges that our accelerators were facing, which are, I think, the same. First of all, they don't really know how to deal with international companies. And those services are quite expensive, especially because of that. So of course, some of these accelerators had partnership with other law firms or lawyers, but the pricing was way too high for their portfolio companies. So when you offer them an automated solution that could scale very quickly, of course, they would have access to legal advice if needed, but they just have like an initial pricing that makes sense for companies that are just starting. So it wasn't difficult for us at all to close those partnerships because, first of all, Startup Chile was like a good branding. Chile's the most famous accelerator by far. So just working with them and we're part of the last batch for them was like, I don't know, a good sign for the rest of them. And just because we understand the problem very clearly and we had a solution which its price make a lot of sense for startup founders. Because what they were telling us is that when they work with their law firms, is that, okay, they'll give them a proposal, which was, I don't know, 6 times more expensive than using any of the Lexgo products. And okay, so founders decided not to solve that issue. So they as the accelerator still had that problem with the portfolio company. They know they have them, they know expensive, and the founders just decided not to deal with that. This happens a lot, at least in South America. And this is why you have huge legal expenses when you try to swap companies into the US, just because you need to deal with cap tables that are a mess, documentation that is not in order, etc. So I don't know, like the fit was just way too perfect. And now the problem was just how we reach all the accelerators and incubators, not only Chile, but the rest of South America that are facing similar challenges.
Right. All right. We do have some questions coming in. Justin Kistner asked, how do you find potential partners? What are the key parameters you think about when forming a partnership agreement? I actually want to weigh in on that real quick just to give people a mental framework that I've used. There are referral partnerships, which is what you've talked about, where you provide so much value that they can't get anywhere else, or that they get it anywhere else it's really expensive, that it's just a no-brainer for them to refer people to you. And those are unique. There aren't a lot of them, but if you can do what you've done and fill such a desperate need in the market, that's a great way to go. The second type I think of is an integration partner, where you have to write some code. And the traditional thought process is you integrate with Zapier, or you integrate with we integrated with Pipedrive and Basecamp, and then you get on there, or Stripe, and you get on their little you try to get them to promote you, try to get on their app list. That's the second kind. The third kind. The third kind is kind of a subset of the first one that you do, where they take an affiliate commission. You eventually essentially pay them a 10%, 20%, 30% kickback for referring you. That's pretty common as well. And the last one that I've done is called a joint venture partnership, where you say, hey, we're complementary tools or complementary applications, and we're each going to email our customer list, email our marketing list, and we're not going to do affiliate revenue. I'm just going to say, hey, we use your tool and we like it, and you say the same thing, and hopefully you're being honest when you say that. But then, you just get to keep the spoils. So those are kind of the 3/4 partnership things that I've seen. So just so people have a mental model, it doesn't have to necessarily be, the type you've talked about. But back to the question is, how do you find potential partners? And I'd love to hear your thoughts first, and then I can weigh in if there's other thoughts.
Yeah, I think we did all of the formulas you just spoke about, so we tried them all. How you find these partners? Actually, because we knew from the beginning that Startup Chile had this problem, we went straight to all the local and accelerators and incubators to do the same. Then, of course, you start analyzing, okay, if this kind of organization have this problem, what kind of other legal problems other organizations have? And of course, and this is interesting because we've dealt with other, organization of companies that are not tech companies or are small, medium businesses, some pro bono organizations that just needed to help companies at cheaper prices so they can, buy us some subscription or services in volume. But actually the one that we get very quick is that other SaaS companies or tech companies are actually also dealing with acquisition, right? So not only we hit 2 birds with one shot, in the sense that we could help them get more clients, and we also can help each of our products be better. I think that's like a very easy sell. And of course, because we knew from the first source that our clients were dealing with accounting, taxes, banking, etc., we knew that our product need to include most of them. In the case of Lexgo Global, we not only help with company incorporation, but also with whatever you need to comply with local regulations, especially virtual offices and all this stuff, and also banking. Like, if you want to create a startup, you need the company to comply with everything, and then have a bank account in order to receive payment for your users, right? What we did is that we implement some of the different formulas that Rob had just spoken about. Is that I don't know, with the Chilean bank, they pay us for every referred client. For other SaaS, we offer discounted price and we get a little referral percentage. From other more, I would say, I don't know, we start working with some companies and we've been working with us since the beginning. So nowadays we have an agreement that is a little more robust in the sense that not only we do cross-marketing between each other, we have some events run together, we publish content from them in our own blog, just to give all of our users going, not only to our services, but also to them, having access to their databases and so on. So maybe I can speak a little about what we're doing nowadays. Is that because we are now entering in the phase that we understand how Chilean local companies are dealing with the problem, how some organizations are facing different problems, but just because they need to deal with all of this bunch of companies. Now we're dealing with the problem that how can you scale the company without losing the quality of service that Lexgo has. I don't want to have another legal provider in that sense. So there's a huge problem because I will say that the Latin market and South American market, especially from Chile, Colombia, and some other small countries, is not as attractive enough for a tech company. So you need to move very quickly to other markets just to open it and have access to a bigger serviceable market. So by what you don't want is to deal with 4 law firms in each of the countries you need to expand. So we were going to, okay, who are the organizations that are facing the same problem? And in Chile, you have, for example, a government agency that is called ProChile, in which not only they fund companies that need to expand Chilean services or goods, but they also give them advice about how to structure the company when they need to expand internationally. So of course we approach them and say like, hey, how are you dealing with this? And yeah, we have some friends and law firms that help us, and they have the same problem as Startup Chile. So we said like, hey, maybe I can create an automated product for each of the countries that you usually scale your operation to. So let me know who are those. Of course, I would love to have a chance to explain them to the current supported companies, like, hey, you can have access to these products, and we can help you with a very accessible price. And we know you want to spend your money on your clients, your product, not on legal. So this will make a lot of sense. And this is one of the last cases of use.
Oh, Leo froze up a bit. Let's see if he comes back. I can always pop in. I think he'll pop in right as I start talking, I bet. I actually have thoughts on this as well. How do you find potential partners? I can tell you what I've done. So when I had an SEO, it's a SaaS SEO keyword tool, I went to Google and I typed in SEO tools, SEO rank trackers. I knew there were just affiliated things that we didn't overlap. And I sent a bunch of cold emails. I sent like 10 cold emails and I got like 8 replies to do joint ventures. So SEO space is particularly suited for that, but it's also something I've seen work. The other thing we did is when I was trying to do it for Drip, which, email service provider, the question that we sat down with the team in front of a whiteboard and I said, okay, we take in leads and we send emails. What happens before and what happens after in the process? Like what happens before taking in leads? One is you might have a landing page. Before that, you might have a pay-per-click or social media software that are trying to drive traffic to those landing pages. So those happen before. What happens after you get into a system like Drip or a MailChimp? They receive emails, and then what do you want them to do? Usually you want them to raise their hand to become a prospect or a lead, and then they would go into CRM, or you want them to buy something. And so then it's like we'll integrate with Gumroad, PayPal, Stripe. These are the afters. So that is also a cool diagram to have, is what happens before your app in your ecosystem and what happens after. Not coincidentally, those start as partnerships. Longer term, if you really get big and expand, you'll start to build out or acquire apps that do those same things. So those are 2 quick thoughts that I have on it. Leo, I'm glad you're back. We have another question for you. No, yeah, no problem. This is internet, and this is doing it live. So Santiago had a question. He says, do you have exclusivity with the accounting/bookkeeping app that you mentioned, or do you have other relationships?
Yeah. In the beginning, we didn't, just because we weren't focused on that. I think the first thing that you need to prove with your partners is that you're useful to them. And you knew that you needed them to be on board just because your product is better. And when you didn't have them with you, you were just lacking that. So when you start proving not only that you're helping them be a better product, and also you are referring them a lot of clients, we get into that discussion very quickly. So for example, I know there's a lot of people that get into those details from the beginning. For me, it's a waste of time. Like, I just prefer to go very light on paperwork and agreements at the beginning, and let's just check this in 2 to 3 months just to see how everything is working out. And if the feedback and data is positive, like I will just say straightforward, like, hey, what if we structured this? We have some referral commissions to each of them, and then we structure some sort of content plan in order to give them some activity to this partnership, which works very well. And the typical thing that you do is that if you close a lot of partnership but you don't activate them, like, they are completely useless. So we focus just on a couple of them that make a lot of sense to us, and then we put a lot of effort on making them useful for their portfolio company or members. I remember that Startup Chile had tons of different perks, but yeah, they didn't have any contact with them. Maybe some of the bigger companies like Amazon, Facebook, they have those partnerships with them, but they traveled to Chile to give a workshop on some stuff. So in some sort of sense, they were active on the community, and people were interested in working with them and sort of that. So we did the same, exactly the same, for not only for these accelerators and incubators, but also with our other companies that we work together. We try to give talks and workshops together, create content that makes a lot of sense for our users, for the accounting status, how to deal with legal, and for the legal users, how to deal with accounting. And of course, we refer those products when we speak about those issues. So yeah, I think that my advice will be in those lines, that I wouldn't fixate myself too much on these details, but I will, if things are working very well and you can quantify how many clients you're referring to them, I will go into those details when you have that data.
All right, and our last question for Leo is, how do you get a partnership going if someone has a partner covering that solution already? For example, our product is a website builder for fitness professionals, but a lot of potential larger partners have a web agency partnership already in place. So they're working with a consulting firm who's already basically doing that for them. But I know our product would be way better for their clients as well as the partner too. Do you try to muscle them out, or just focus on building a relationship to start? So it's an interesting question, right? There's almost like a gatekeeper those agencies are really good at building long-term relationships and good at enterprise sales or larger ticket consulting sales. So agencies may have 10, 20, 30 clients, and I think that the thought process here is, do you go to each of those end clients and try to sell them on the solution that their agency is going to say, yeah, don't use that, because that's essentially going to make them moot? Or do you go to the agency route and try to convince the agency, try to build something, that they potentially need? It's a very specific question, so don't feel like you have to, answer it in that context. But I think in general, what are your thoughts on there before we wrap?
Yeah. I think I have never had to deal with agencies that represent some other solutions, but of course I've been getting to the same places which other law firms or alternative legal solutions already arrived. And the only way that I was able to muscle out those competitors was, of course, because there wasn't so many legal tech solutions, just because how your works and your pricing was from like point one very effective. And second is that we were not only able, but we wanted to spend time understanding very clearly what was the problem that we're facing, each of these organizations, and then create a product that solves them. And of course, you can do this with everyone, but at the beginning, the first couple of years made a lot of sense for us because we wanted to be the best ones dealing with tech companies in the country. And of course, they were the main source not only of clients, but also information about what we need to build in order to solve these problems. And there's a lot of little details about why they decided to go with Lexgo instead of, I don't know, the big law firms or some other cool alternative legal providers. Just because, I don't know, we spoke the same language, we understand the problem startups were facing because we're also facing them ourselves. We were very transparent on the product we're building was to facilitate legal, not to be or these organizations be another channel. We wanted to build a product that we know we could make more money offering legal advice on this, but we wanted to create a cheap product just because we want everyone to have access to them. So we didn't choose this course or pitch just because we knew it was effective. We truly believe about that. And I know this is not like very concise advice about how to deal with this, but I'm pretty sure that was the reason why we were so effective. Every time we do any kind of activity or building a specific product for them, like the portfolio founders and companies, they could relate to us in a way they couldn't with law firms. And I think this is when you get a little more about branding and how your company brand talks to your users, etc. But I think that was one of the cool things we did from the beginning. So for us, it wasn't a problem to close partnership because our founding team and the marketing were able to spend a lot of time just helping this very specific group of users, which sounds sounds weird because you're focused on a very small market, but you want them to love your solution. And I think that's always very effective.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. And we are going to, if folks want to keep up with you online, are you on Twitter? Where can they keep up with what you're up to?
Yeah, I'm in Twitter. I think it's Leo Barrientos P. You can also get me on LinkedIn. I think it's a little easier. Please don't write me Leonardo. Leo is more than enough. Latin names could be difficult, especially with pronunciation. But your Spanish was pretty good, Rob. Don't worry about that.
Thanks. I think that's like 5 or 6 years of Spanish class in California schools. So I think it served me well. Awesome. Thanks again for joining me today, Leo. Yeah. Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure meeting you all. Take care, guys.